I'm Jason Hillhouse. I have 11 years of professional experience in game development and software development. Completed over 20 professional Unity titles over the last few years, and about that many in game jams and prototypes. I'm also a bit of a failure, in a good way though, as I'll go over in the next few slides, because that's all right. And there's, because there's a nice motivational quote, so you know it's all right. Yeah, basically, let's just jump right into it. Who are you guys? Hopefully looking at making a commercial game title, starting a new game project, trying to make or you're just in another project and you don't know how to quite finish it. Or you're just trying to get faster at finishing games, which is basically what I'm always trying to do, so. We'll do it again? Yeah. All right. So, to clear the air about failure, because it just sounds wrong to say failure, but I feel like the more you get used to the concept, it's really the best way of, another way of saying it is fail fast, right? Get your game done, get it out there, then move on to the next project. So I think it's fantastic. And I don't think failing is something to avoid at all. I don't think it's something you should be ashamed of, because how else are you going to get better? And what is a four-letter word, but we shouldn't treat it that way. So, failing to fail for me is just basically not shipping your game. That's really what I'm talking about, is just maybe spending a little too much time on it, or not just finding what you're really going for. Really just spending too much time on it, well beyond the point to where you can't kick it out the door and see if it sells or see if it's popular. Just, end it and move on to the next project, so you can, because your next project will always be better. All right, so let's get to failing. I like how he failed so hard he's crying tears of blood. All right. So whenever I make new features, I typically think of this quote. It's just I'm not much of a quote person, but this one it kind of sticks with me because it rings true a lot. Because if you don't finish something, you can't really grade it. You can't really take it all together and say, is this good? Is this bad? What did I learn? What didn't I learn? It's, just shipping and getting your product out there, I feel, is always the thing that guides me personally when I develop. And so, yeah, I always think of Steve Jobs. So why shipping is important? Job prospects. If you're ever looking for a job, they're going to want to look at your portfolio. And you don't want to tell them, oh, I got this cool game, but next year it's going to look really good. You want to show them a nice little jam project or a cool prototype that you just kind of all-encompassing prototype that really shows that you can, get that idea and just get it out there, no strings attached, just done. Shipping is a skill, just like any other. It's really about scoping is really the core skill there. You are basically taking a design problem, you are finding a solution to it, and you are executing on it, and then you're saying, that's it, I'm done. Here's what I did. What do you think? And of course, multiple chances for success. The more you do it, the better you will get. All right, now it brings us to scope. What is a realistic scope? There really is no right answer here because there are too many genres, too many types of games. We could be talking about tabletop, we could be talking about a casual game, we could be talking about a hardcore indie game. And they all have different types of realistic scopes. But really, a realistic scope for me is anything I can accomplish in a short amount of time, or at least a predictable amount of time, with my skill set. And for people just starting out, that could just be a couple of weeks, possibly up to a month. For a person who's doing it for a few years, possibly gets a partner involved, it could be multiple months to maybe a year or two. But it's really about just being able to ship when you think you'll be done. I will get this done in 3 to 6 months, and you're pretty confident you'll make that. So once you get that, now cut it more. Cut it in half, possibly a third, possibly all the way down to a single mechanic. And then you can go to sleep and wake up and cut it even further, because trust me, that scope is going to blow up all on its own. You don't have to do anything at the beginning. It's just going to go out of control. And eventually you're just trying to find ways to get that game shipped. All right, and the best way to start off is prototyping. Prototyping and what I really call game jamming is my absolute favorite and go-to way of actually getting at least it lets me know if my game is good or not. It lets me know if the game actually has any legs at all, or if I should just give up on it. It was that's which is what I was playing when you guys walked in. Those two game jam projects, they sounded good on paper, and they didn't really necessarily were that bad once we got them done after the weekend. But after slept on it, talked about it, we weren't really sure it was too marketable, so we just kind of let them just sit on itch.io and just hang out there forever. So there, there's your game jam. All right. Oh, it's a process too. So you game jam, and yeah, it's not so good. So then maybe you'll do a 2-week prototype of something else, and maybe that one's not so good. So you keep doing that. You just, do prototype, well, fail equal to true. Just do it all day, every day. I was trying to count all the prototypes that I'd done just to get the first slide accurate. I can't even find it because it's across so many computers and laptops and dead hard drives that it's just just do it until you've just forgotten how many prototypes you've made, and then someday you may have half decent gameplay, and that's the keeper. That's the one you want to go with. So some red flags that I like to look for. Main loop isn't fun, interesting, or distinct from competitors. It sounds pretty subjective, but my favorite way to do this is to just give your game to a total stranger and just see what happens. Make sure the last thing you want is someone who's going to be not necessarily nice, but not be able to give you some realistic feedback on what this would be like if you, say, took this all the way to market, put it on Steam, and now you really have strangers in the forums telling you exactly how they feel about your game. This is the best way to check if your game you spent 2 weeks on will not suffer from gameplay problems like that. No level content. This is one I see a little bit. I've done this in the past, actually. There's a slide coming up on it. If you have worked on a core game loop for months and months and months, and it's getting pretty good, but now you realize you don't have any levels to actually give the player to use that awesome game loop on, and you don't know how to make those levels or what level design to use, possibly you have a really awesome 5-minute game, but not much to build on. So maybe start over. Oh, the art part of games. One most important, well, I consider it probably the most important part is art in your game, and especially from a marketability standpoint. If you are looking to get your game out on Steam, or you want to get people just itch.io, and you want to make sure that that initial capsule they see or that gameplay video they see is really cool, they want to click on it, play that game, art's probably going to be how they do that. So one thing people starting out that I also did too was don't ever feel bad about buying assets. Go to the Unity asset store, use it to as much as you can. I've made entire prototypes, and in the future we'll continue to make prototypes almost entirely of assets from the asset store, just to get that sheen, that polished looking visual to a game that I may have not spent that much time on. On the visual side, but actually try to so I can just focus on the game loop, and then I can just buy some assets, and they can do all the talking for me in terms of the art. Oh, this is one too. No realistic ship date. If you just think it's going to be about a year from now, you should really step back and think maybe it's not going to be finished, because that's I've been there, and if you can't say this will be done in 3 months, I know it for a fact, or it's probably going to double. So you think it's going to be 1 year, it might be 2 years. After 2 years, you might not even sure if it's good enough to, you have to redo it. It's, one of those things where you just got to step back and think, maybe I should start over. Maybe I should jam out something else. These are all definitely not, these are all soft red flags. You don't have to actually just say, the art's not so good, and I should just make another game with an artist. These are just kind of things to look out for. Aha, my favorite part, practical example time. So we're going to look at a few game jam games, so you can have a good idea of what I think is good examples of when something is looking pretty good for the big shots. So with Gods Will Be Watching, this is an old Ludum Dare game. These are all game jam games, by the way. So these are things that are made in 4 days or less. Oh, that also made it to Steam. I was going to sit down. We just basically extracted that gameplay out to also let you move around, but kept this everything in the original game jam just stayed the exact same in terms of the healing and the shields. We just more classes, we had items in there. It's a roguelike now, and then besides that, it was just making this work with that first screen. And that's been the entire process. Right? Oh, it's another game jam. That was a platform tower defense game, like Super Crate Box almost. Yeah. All right, let's jump back in here. Okay, so these are some indies that have inspired me over the years in terms of their prolific nature of making games. So we'll start off with Jonathan Soderstrom here. He is Cactus. He eventually went on to make Hotline Miami. But before that, he made about 50 prototypes that were just for fun, really. He just I'll call him a master's scope. Yeah, each cut is a brand new game. These aren't part of the same game at all. He experimented a lot with top-down shooter mechanics. He's a big fan of that. One important thing I see from a lot of these is that the one thing these all carried over into their final game, if they did actually make it, was the art style. Nailing down the art style from the beginning is almost as important as nailing down your gameplay. So it's easy to forget, but yeah, always remember to have a very solid and intriguing art style to go with. He draws people so great. Genres. Played around with 3D a little bit. This is probably one of the creepiest games I've ever played. He made it. Definitely not afraid to play with different art styles. Yeah. And after Hotline Miami, I'm pretty sure he's just in a Swedish rock band now. I forget which country is he from? Yeah. Yeah, they made the sequel, and I looked at his page, and he just posts songs from his band. It's like, that's a true indie. Almost like just bleed cave story if you cut him. All right. And also, my personal favorite is JW from Vlambeer. They make one of the most famous titles they've made lately is Nuclear Throne. And I'm going to trick you
like
here.
That. I tried the game a couple of times before my friend.
And yeah, I guess he was talking, so I can't give you the sound. But this is actually a weekend prototype he made. I don't think I've ever seen a more fully functional game made in 4 days. And it has basically everything you would want in a shooter roguelike. You even have power-ups at the end of each day or each level. There you go. It's randomly generated. Everything's one screen with preset enemies. and he just worked with an artist live on Twitch and made this over 4 days. Yeah, and then you would almost not be able to tell the difference between this and the final product if you've seen Nuclear Throne. Almost nothing changed. You just spent 2 years after this working on this same project, probably project file from the game maker, which he uses, and just more weapons, more characters, more levels, more enemies, and polish it till it feels really good. And I'm a big fan of that particular pipeline for making new game ideas. Okay, this part's for people already on a project. Maximize this real quick. There you go. Yeah, so you say you're on a project, maybe it's been a few months, not sure the best way to wrap it up. Make sure you can wrap it up. Most important thing, well, actually, I'm a pretty firm believer that no matter how far down the road you are, if you really had to, like if I was going to give you $1 million if you could finish your game in a month, I bet you could do it. A lot of it has to do with basically how many levels do you want to put in your game. Well, if you want to finish in a month, you've got all the levels. If you want, it's just any content you want to add. Content is the easiest way to add too much scope to your game, and it's the easiest way to finish your game. So if you are just thinking this game really needs X, either that's weapons or levels or characters, but you don't know how long it's going to take, you should probably just wrap it up. Because if your game is good enough right now, it'll be just as good in a few months when you add more content. And depending on it all depends on how things are market-wise. If you have a few hundred followers and you're getting crazy amounts of likes every month, that's one of the reasons you should probably keep on working on a project. But if it's just a little personal project and you're just trying to ask yourself, should I finish this? My answer is usually yes. There you go. Okay, which leads me to something I see sometimes. The forever project is the best word I can use for it. It's like everything. It's a little hard to describe, but usually it's about 2+ years in development. Fuzzy roadmap on planned features, but you have enough to keep working on maybe the game loop, so that's what keeps you going. You get the moving your own goalposts. I'm thinking of my previous games, by the way. That's why I seem so comfortable with this. Definitely moving your own goalposts. You think, yeah, well, I could just always redo that, or that menu, I could just redo it next month. Or you have this enemy, but he's just not working, so I'm going to redo him. It's very easy to just scrap it and redo it on the same project instead of just keeping things as they are and just, living with your game warts and all. And then the big one is you have no realistic estimate for its future release date. If, like I was saying before, if you think it's just a year out, probably longer than that. And you should probably think of maybe just wrapping it up with what's in the game. And of course, I know this because I made this game for about 2 or 3 years. Oh, come on, give a sound. Come on. Go away. Oh. No. All right, well, we'll just play with no sound. So yeah, this is Run Gun Dungeon. I worked on it for yeah, Run Gun Dungeon. It was on a Greenlight, and I never quite got it out there. Yeah. Thanks. I liked it too. Yeah. Oh, wait, I can just do this. Haha, I tricked you, Chrome. Yeah, I started the prototype. This is my first Unity game. I started the prototype in Game Maker, and basically redid this twice. I did it one time, and I tried to make another game that was basically a top-down shooter, but with melee, and it ended up just being this game. So I decided to make this game, that game, and then just started this whole awful cycle. And then I probably won't. I'll probably come back to it. It's already got a Steam place because of Greenlight, so it's already got a place on Steam because it passed through Greenlight. So I'll just have to just put it out there. Really. Yeah, it's definitely one of my goals after looking for heals is all done. Yeah, definitely spent a lot of time polishing this one little game loop. It was Yeah, so the one thing come on. Let's actually get that going again. Yeah, so the main lessons I learned with this was basically to move on to the level content as fast as possible, because this is one thing that stopped me from really progressing, was making new, this was just this one floor you see was basically the only floor I worked with for months, if not over a year. And adding the other features was really what I spent most of my time on. And I feel like I probably could have had something very releasable if only I just focused more on adding more levels and enemies and less on the game feel, which was what was really driving my development for a long time. So yeah, that was and like Joe said, I'll probably come back to it, but I think it was the best idea. Well, actually, yeah, I definitely once and for all moved on to this too, looking for heals, at least mentally, and I think that was a good call in the long run. So yeah, this is where a lot of this presentation comes from. So in conclusion. Focus on making small, complete experiences at first until you have something that you're pretty sure is pretty great, or, you know, sort of great. You know, you see something because, you know, you're going to make a lot of stuff which is not great at all. And, yeah, a big one is if you want to go big, get a team, get some help, because solo dev is, unless, depending on the genre, of course, is pretty tough to manage unless you have a quick 1 month project, quick 2 month project. If you want to make a game like the ones you play, which we all do a little bit, you're probably going to need some people to split the art, split the sound, probably another programmer, especially if you're wanting to make something that's popular on Steam that you might like. And I just like to say, fail it till you make it. Just keep on failing, keep on finishing games, and then eventually you'll find something that you'll just say, I think this could work, and then go for it. So fail till you make it. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah. I just Googled question fail, and this came up. So. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming, guys. Yeah. No way. I'm still here.
So, what's the shortest time period, both in man hours or man weeks or whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
and physical time did you take from creating a game to actually putting it out?
I've always been taking a little while on my games. I typically don't really get to that point. I really spend a lot of my time just making prototypes, and I've always been an overscoper. So, looking for heals will be the first. Well, okay, we can go with Arbiter. I did a VR game before this one, and that one took about 6 months of. Let me show you that guy. This is about a 6 month part-time project, and that's yeah, I would say it's about six months until I actually got it on Steam in early access in a state that was good enough that other people could log on and play. So that's probably the fastest I've been able to do it. But it's a 3D game. It's VR. This was yeah, this is already a big undertaking. All of them. PC mainly. Yeah. You played on PC. Oculus? Yeah, I was on Oculus. Yeah. I'm afraid to look at the Steam page. I haven't updated it in a long time. Yeah. So, yeah. So. Right. Let's see, a split part-time team. Typically, what's your like? Do you have like a Trello board, or what's your project management look like? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right now we're kind of finishing up our script, and a lot of the mechanics of the program, fortunately we cut a bunch of mechanics from the other programs without any value.
Okay, yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it's just a lot of time goes by really quickly, and all of a sudden a day or 3 months
Yeah, if that's what it's looking. I mean, people have, part time is tough. Sometimes you can spend a whole lot of time, sometimes you can't. If yeah, it looks like you got a good beat on how much work people are able to put into it. It would be about, I'd say, just what can you do to wrap it up in a weekend if everyone can just get together, or if you could management wise, what cards are very important and could get done in a weekend, and then just try to split that with the current workload you're able to do right now. Jam it out. Yeah, we did that last weekend actually. If you're looking for heels, we typically just I've been working full time on the project, and Stu works part time on the art, and when we just trying to wrap it up right now, and so we just spent a good weekend over in coffee shops and houses, just finishing those last few major features up so we can get to the polish pass. What's the problem? Mm. If there's a roadblock that's just if depends on the time. If it's been like weeks and definitely months, and there's a roadblock design wise or art wise that just can't seem to get over it, yeah, that's kind of a just scrap the project sort of sign for me. Yeah, yeah. Many hats. Really, working with an artist has definitely been probably the best way of keeping focused on design and code, since art and code are just such different things. I mean, I've done it in other projects, and you literally it's like, I've seen in the past people, have you ever seen someone who knows 2 languages, for a total of 3, and they have to switch between them? You can just see their kind of brain skipping as they like have to switch over to Spanish mode or over to Japanese mode, and it's like, yeah, it's like the same thing with art and code. If you can separate those out where someone else just focuses entirely on the code or the sound or the design, it's only gonna make your game better. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Oh, if looking for a contractor, it's tougher to find a reliable like person for for a long time. If you have a really good asset list, is it 2D or 3D? 2D, yeah. So there's Fiverr is pretty good. If you have a really good asset list and that's that you can just put in an Excel document that you could send to a potential contractor. Fiverr's been pretty good for small contracts. Um, Anyone else know of any good 2D places? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you ever go for it.
there's always more than one way to skin a cat.
Mm-hmm.
And don't underestimate your own ability to learn how to do some art. I'm getting better over the years at doing UI, and that happened because I hired an artist for my first game to just do UI. I picked
Beveling goes a long way.
Yeah, at one point, when I looked at bevel, I thought it was like the lever in our user or stop, whoever said it.
Fancy lever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the lever was the stand on page the world, right? You learn the bevel, you go, this is like learning a font, back when they had a word processor.
Oh, and you can change the font.
But you can learn to get better at this.
Mhm.
And by the way, tools make you better. Unity has made me even better because under my old system, not only when I did the UI stuff that I wanted to do, I had to then have it be perfect because we were so perfect things. There was no automatic resizing or scaling or anything like that. In Unity, I just do it. I don't care. Hit big, make it small, and it actually looks pretty good. Pretty good. I can do it here.
Yeah. So it's and more to the game jam point. That's pretty much. I know. I think musicians they do this. They just like jam out. Someone in their garage. If they want to know how good they're going to work together, game jams are the exact same way. So if you ever want to just find someone to partner with, game jam with them, you'll know if you can work. Cool. Yep. Cool. All right. Well, that's it. Got one? GitHub for the code and really simple Trello for any tasks. We typically meet every weekend and figure out what the things for that week we should do are, and we just put them in the to-do list. Yeah, pretty simple. Keep it nice and short. Awesome. Yeah. hmm Of course. Yeah. Like even this little guy. I'm probably gonna come back to him one day. A little robot running around, bringing back a necromancer robot. I mean, someday I'll probably come back to it. Yeah, these are not necessarily in a graveyard. They're just things that I couldn't figure out how to work out at the time. Mm-hmm. Right. It's design if I've ever heard of it. It's great. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, especially these days, itch.io is fantastic. If you are making all of these, from now on, any little game I'm gonna put it on itch.io, and just for me personally, so I can just Google it like I am here, or so if anyone wants to look at what I've done, it's just always right there, yeah, on itch.io. So that's one thing to try out. Cool, awesome, man. Yeah, itch.io. Yeah. Yeah, I love that site. Great, guys. Well, thanks for coming. Yeah, appreciate it.